Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Welcome to another lecture of this course Philosophy of Architecture. Today is lecture number 10 and the title of today's lecture is House as an Intimate Space. In this lecture, we will deal with what is the meaning of home, house as honorific space and what it means we will discuss as we proceed, verticality and horizontality within a house, cosmicity of a house and so on. A large part of this lecture has been taken from this book called The Poetics of Space, written by Gaston Bachelard. You will see that this lecture and this work presents house not only as an intimate space, but a place which constructs our imagination, which constructs how we become imaginative, and that is why I have given a subtitle to today's lecture on this course Philosophy of Architecture, and that subtitle is Excavating the Poetic Imagination. Now, what does this mean, excavating the poetic imagination? Most of us, when we live in the house, we live in our memories. When we think of where we have lived, the house that comes to our mind uppermost when we think of home, generally it is the childhood home. And the kind of images that we dream, the kind of stories that we think of about our childhood, about our lives, most of them are constructed by the time that we have spent in that childhood home, by the images that we have formed while being as a child in that home. So, my first exercise to you, and this exercise I can not tire giving you again and again, is that close your eyes and imagine home. Think of home. Close your eyes and think of home. You will see that only one picture will emerge in your mind. And why that one picture will emerge and why only one picture will emerge is something that all of us have to ponder over, because that picture often you will see belongs to the home where we lived as a child. Now, home is an intimate space, and why do we call home as an intimate space? Because it is a place where we develop relationship, it is a place where we come into being, it is a place which is our corner in the world, a corner that we occupy in this world. So, what happens in a corner? A corner is a place which has which is covered from two sides, and it is two sides open. So, covered from two sides and two sides open means what? Means we are half enclosed and half open, and that dichotomy, that duality between closed and open makes it, gives it an intimate character, creates condition for intimacy. Now, that house being, or that home being the our corner in this world, it creates intimacy. It is also because a house is a place where we have relationships, where we form relationships, and these are the relationships which are elementary, fundamental, which are relationships related to our birth. So, for example, relationship with our parents, relationship between siblings, relationship with children, relationship with grandparents and so on. These are familial relationships. These relationships are based on emotions, these are based on blood relations, these are based on responses over a long period of time, and that is why home becomes an intimate space. So, what we have to see is our experiences inside home while we are children and while we are growing up. If you think of your home, whether it is current home or your previous home or early home or any home, you might have a favorite spot. And now, what does this mean, having a favorite spot in a home? Favorite spot means that perhaps the place where you are likely to be found if you are at home. You are most likely to be found when you are at home, which means it could be before television, it could be in a corner of a couch, it could be a table on the dining table, a chair in the dining table, it could be the bed in your room, it could be the balcony, it could be any part where which happens to be your favorite, and you tend to go there by default. Now, I would like you to think about the character of that favorite spot. Why the spot that you generally choose to go is your favorite spot? What is its character? What does it say about you? What is the view that you get by being in that favorite spot? What kind of texture you experience, texture of say fabric, texture of say light and walls and furniture and so on. So, what kind of texture do you experience while being in that favorite spot? And it is that experience that conditions how you think, how you imagine and how you feel. So, it is that favorite spot often that creates room for you to dream. Now, this is not the dream that say APJ Abdul Kalam talks about, that I want a dream that does not let me sleep. Here we are talking of dream which we see while we are asleep. These are the dreams that we see when we are daydreaming. So, these are images that come to our mind when we are asleep, and you will see that these images are primitive images. These are primal images, images that relate to animals, images that are fantastic, that are about natural beings. These images relate to that part of our life which we have perhaps forgotten, a life which was primitive, a life which was ancient. So, what I am trying to say is that favorite spot in the house always encourages us to daydream or dream, and perhaps that is the reason why we keep going back to the favorite spot in our house. You know, house performs the task of being an integrator of thoughts. Now, what does this mean, being an integrator of thoughts? What kind of thought do we generally have? The thoughts are of course either related to our work or related to our life. It can also be related to our relationships. Now, no matter what the thoughts are, generally what happens is house performs the function of a stage where these thoughts occur, where some of these thoughts find expression or interpretation or realization, and some of them just wither away. So, what I am trying to say is that the thoughts that we have, they find a platform, they get integrated into this spatiality of the house. And why this spatiality? Because house is relatively a stable entity. When we say stable entity, what does it mean? It means that suppose I go out of the house for work or to school. When we come back to the same house. It is not that we come back to some new house or some other house. If when we go on a holiday, even after holiday, we come back to the same house. So, there is a rigidity, there is a stability in the presence of the house. In the house, what gets integrated is past, present and future. And it is because of this that house presents a stage on which our life unfolds. And when we say our life unfolds, what does it mean? What unfolds in life? Our thoughts unfold, our emotions unfold, our relationships unfold, our successes and failures unfold, our hatreds and joys unfold. So, these are the elements that unfold in the stage of the house, and that is why house performs the function of an integrator, the agent of an integrator of thoughts, emotions, and so on and so forth. So, that is why house, if we look at the houses we have lived in, or if we look at the experiences that we have had in different houses, we will see that there is a certain earthiness to that, to those experiences, because those experiences are rooted in the soil, in the space of that house, and that is how house performs the task of integrating our experiences, integrating our thoughts, emotions, feelings, relationships, etc. Another thing, house has a maternal feature. House performs the role of a mother to childhood, performs the role of the nurturer, the carer, the caregiver, and in some sense house is a cradle. So, when we are children, our mothers cradle us in her arms. House is also something like a large cradle, a cradle in which the childhood lies motionless. Childhood lies motionless means when we think of our childhood home, we will, it is static, it is fixed. So, I mean, try and imagine you as a child in the house wherever you spent your childhood. You will see that your experience is still, your childhood is motionless, while the events and activities is are lively and active, etc., but childhood per se in entirety remains motionless. So, you are a child in that house. You, even if you have grown in that house and you have gone there several times even as grown up, but when you think of that house, you will think of your childhood as a motionless period where you are enjoying and uncovering your childhood. So, what I am trying to say is that this maternal features of the house. So, what is this house doing? House is not only cradling you, but it is nurturing you, it is growing you, it is perhaps instilling in you certain value which becomes your character, your personality, your way of engaging with the world and so on. I want you to focus on the picture which is there on this slide. This is from a movie called My Left Foot, and in this Daniel Day-Lewis, he played the role of Christy Brown, who becomes a poet, and the life of Christy Brown. So, Daniel Day-Lewis plays the role of the poet and who goes on to become a celebrated poet. But in this picture or in this image that you are seeing, the scene is that Christy Brown or Daniel Day-Lewis, in his, when he was young, he used to live in this house, and he was a child of a bricklayer. So, obviously, he is from a poor family, and bricklayer means one of the most elementary work that one can do, and therefore, he lived in a poor neighborhood, and in his family there were many children. So, they were also in a poor state of affairs, and in fact, this scene where you can see that mother is written in chalk. What happens, the incident that happens is that while he is young and he is crippled, which means he can only use his left foot, he cannot use any of his limbs, neither his hands nor his right leg, he can only use his left foot. And then what happens is, he is lying in a corner and his mother is pregnant, and what happens is, while climbing stairs, she slips and she falls down, and at that time there is nobody at home, and nobody thought that Christy Brown or this boy will be able to do anything, but he is able to raise alarm, he is able to call someone by making noise, etc., and someone comes and they are able to understand that his mother is in a problem, and immediately mother is taken to hospital and she comes back all right. So, everybody is very happy that Christy Brown is able to do, despite his being paralyzed, he is able to create alarm and he is able to take care of his mother. So, there is a very poignant scene in this movie where when everyone is very appreciative of him, he takes a chalk between the toes of his left leg or left foot and he writes on the floor these letters that call mother. So, what I am trying to say is that, see, this is a paralyzed child and he is living in this house the way he is. It is not that it is a grand house, it is a very simple house. You can imagine a bricklayer's house, and he is able to develop this emotion about his home, about his family, about his mother, and he is able to write. His father, who always thought that this boy is no good and he can do nothing, he is so proud that he never really cared about this boy, he never talked to this boy. But after this incident, what he does is he carries the boy on his shoulder and takes him to his friends and shows him that, see, this is my boy, after he has written mother on the floor of the house. Later on, when Christy Brown grows up and becomes a celebrated poet, he takes care of his mother, he takes care of his family and so on. So, point I am trying to make is that the maternal features of the house, the way house nurtures you, develops you, it not only creates, not only lets you grow, but it also lets you grow in a certain way. It instills a value system, it instills a certain way of looking at the world, and perhaps this setting also encouraged him to become a poet. Let us move forward. So, housing of memories. What we are saying till now is that house in some sense cradles our childhood, in some sense it takes us in its arms and lets us grow. But what it also does is it houses our memories. Now, when we think of any past event, or when we think of a memory, any memory, generally we will see that memory is associated with space. Now, that space could be a thing, that space could be a house, that space could be any space. It could be a tree, it could be a person, it could be whatever. So, here what we are saying is house is not just a house for us to live in, house is also to house memories, a house where memories find spatial interpretation. So, memories have a something very tangible, and that tangible feel to memory comes from the space where that memory unfolds, and in majority of the cases these memories find that tangible space inside the house. So, memories are housed in our houses. So, what happens is, now see, when we think of our childhood or any memory, we will see that and the farther it is in the past, what we will see is that this memory is not really very precise. Okay, it is not exactly how things happened. The memory is perhaps what we imagine as the way things happened. So, instead of memory being exactly what happened on that day, memory is actually the way we want to remember that event. So, I hope you can see the difference. The difference is memory is not what actually happened, but memory is that the form in which we want that event to remember. So, there is a fine difference, and that fine difference, that how we thought it happened rather than how it happened, goes on to contribute to who we are and how we live our lives, how we think and how we feel and so on. So, what I am trying to say is that the way memory is housed plays a big role in the way we remember our past and the way we interpret our past in order to make sense of future. So, house perhaps functions like a generator of ideas or like a generator of images from where we derive fantasy, from where we derive aspiration, from where we derive stories and meaning. Let us move forward. So, as you know, we are dealing with this book called Poetics of Space, and it is written by Gaston Bachelard. And you know what he said is that this analysis, that how people have spent their life in spaces, particularly houses or intimate spaces, this analyzing these intimate spaces can be given a term, and that term is topo analysis. So, this is a term given by the author Gaston Bachelard to systematic psychological study of intimate spaces. A house is an intimate space. He also said that it is not just about dreaming that happens at night, but also daydreaming. Now, what is daydreaming? Daydreaming is that while during the day, you do not have to wait for the night, during the day, if say you feel slightly sleepy or you suddenly are tired and you close your eyes and certain images flash in your mind. So, those images are daydreaming. So, it is those images that also need to be taken care of or to be considered seriously, and not just the images that you see at night while sleeping. So, the images that are generated during the day have a distinct contribution from the house or from the favorite spot or from the intimate spaces that you have identified within the house, if not the full house itself. So, therefore, what we are talking of is a localization of memory. Localization means memory is localized. Memory is localized in space, memory is localized in house, memory is localized at the favorite spot that you may have in your house. So, localization of memory is something that we must all think about while creating architectural objects. We must give opportunity to people to dream, to locate their memory in various spots. Today, when you go to any event or any building, you see that there is a selfie spot. Now, selfie spot is a very obvious example that some spots are created with props where people can go and take selfies. But here this is not that. Here what we are talking of is on its own, it's psychologically it happens that you like a certain corner or you like a certain furniture or you like sitting or sleeping or being in a certain way in one corner, and that becomes a site for you to make memories, for you to be comfortable, for you to daydream. So, essentially what Gaston Bachelard is saying that these intimate spaces are actually oniric spaces. And what is oniric spaces? Oniric spaces are those spaces which encourage us to dream. So, spaces that facilitate dreaming, spaces that where we go and we are more likely to have daydreams or dreams. So, oniric spaces are such spaces. Let us move forward. So, this whole study, topo analysis, is study of psychological study of oniric spaces, psychological study of intimate spaces, and excavating reasons behind localization of memory. So, this is what Gaston Bachelard talked about. He also talked about the structure of the mind, and he related it to a statement made by psychoanalyst Carl Jung. I want you to look at this picture before we do a deeper or a wider analysis of the structure of the mind. You see, this is this looks like a mind, or this picture is of a house obviously, and what he is saying is our mind is actually built like a house. Our mind has a upper story, ground floor, and basement and attic, cellar and all that. So, depths of the mind actually come from depths of the house, and house must be created in such a manner that it has height and it has depth. Let us look at, I want you to think about a house which has height and which has depth. In this house you can see that there are steps. By steps you can go up and by steps you can come down. You can, when you are standing down you can look up, and when you are standing up you can look down. So, these activities, when we look up or look down, these are not just physical activities, they are also metaphorical activities. They also mean something. They create conditions for intimacy. And what condition for intimacy? Condition for intimacy means objectification. So, when you look down, you look at someone who is below you and you are filled with emotions of, say, tenderness or pity and various other emotions, maybe desire. So, these emotions get generated because there is a sense of objectification in them, and when you look at them, either things or people, you look at them as object because you are looking down at them, and you tend to have an emotion of either desiring them or repulsing them. So, these emotions create conditions for intimacy. They do not make you indifferent, they make you either like it or not like it. Similarly, when you look up to someone, when you raise your head up. So, let us look at this. Now, if in the house there is a staircase, and staircase means there is a floor above, and if there is a floor above, it means that you have to climb up and go, or if you have to look, if you have to talk to somebody, you have to look up. Now, a point here is what I was saying, that if you have to look up, you look up at whom? You look up at someone who is stationed above you. And who is stationed above you? Physically someone who lives upstairs, but lives upstairs can mean many things. Lives upstairs means also living in the sky. It lives upstairs means living up on a station which is higher than mine, on a higher hierarchy, or lives up someone who is taller than me, and so on. So, what I am trying to say is that when you look up, so if the act of looking up, raising your head and looking up is a metaphorical act, you look up in admiration, you look up in respect, you look up in awe, and this creates a condition for intimacy, and therefore, it becomes an intimate space. Similarly, look down, and look down means there is a basement. I have given the picture of a basement. In many houses you do have, nowadays we do not have, but there used to be basements in many houses. Now, imagine, say you are sleeping in your bedroom which is on the ground floor or on the first floor, and then at the middle of the night you suddenly hear some noise coming out in the basement. Now, you may think that what is this noise? You wake up and you want to see what really is going on in the basement, where from the noise is coming. And then instead of going there, you will see, oh, I think it is our cat, or it is the mouses which are making noise and they are running around, and that is where the noise is coming from. And so, you do not go into the basement. But actually what has happened? You are scared of going into the basement. You do not know what really is happening in the basement, which may scare you, which may kill you, and therefore, you avoid going into the basement. Now, this is an irrational fear. I mean, you know very well that there is no monster in the basement. You know very well that there is no way cats and dogs and rats can come into the basement, because it is very well sealed. What you are doing is you are justifying your fear that there may be something in the basement which is dangerous to me. So, let me not go. So, the basement or the cellar stands for that which is irrational in our lives, that which cannot be justified through reason, which cannot be justified consciously. That is why we give the excuse that, oh, there must be rats running around, or cat may have jumped, and that is why we will not go into the basement. It is actually out of fear that we do not go into the basement. We also know that basement is generally dark, and if the basement is dark, then there is uncertainty. And what is the uncertainty about? Think of a primitive man. He will not go into the areas which is dark, because maybe some animal is lurking behind, and that animal may actually jump onto you and kill you. So, it is that primitive fear in your mind which prevents you from going into the attic, going into the basement and confronting your fear. So, here I will give you the statement made by psychoanalyst Carl Jung, who likened a structure of a mind to the structure of a building, and he said that and he is talking about mind. Remember, the name of this essay is Mind and the Earth. So, this passage is taken from this essay, and it is written by Jung, famous psychoanalyst Carl Gustav Jung. And let us read the extract from this essay, and he is describing the structure of the mind. He says, we have to describe and to explain a building, the upper story of which was erected in 19th century. The ground floor dates back from the 16th century, and a careful examination of the masonry discloses the fact that it was reconstructed from a dwelling tower of the 11th century. In the cellar, we discover Roman foundation walls, and under the cellar a filled in cave, in the floor of which stone tools are found and remnants of glacial fauna in the layers below. That would be a sort of picture of our mental structure. So, what he is saying is that our mind is like a building, and in this building the upper story means the topmost, that which is accessible to us. When we look at the building, we see that it was recently constructed, it is new, and we can easily see what is going on in the upper strata, the upper floor of our mind. So, it is something like conscious mind. And then when we go down to the ground floor, we see that the walls, the way the designs are of the wall, of the house, of the pillars, of the door, it is actually of 16th century. It is not today's. So, our mind at the topmost may be today, but at the ground floor it is about 16th century, which is 300 years back. So, in our mind at the next level, what is going on is actually what used to go on in the mind of a human being about 300 years ago. 300 years, you can imagine. So, if today is 20th century, 300 years ago will be around 1700, 1600, 1700, when Britishers had just come to India. That was the time which is about 300-400 years ago, and in our mind the immediately next level that is going on is 300 years ago, around 16th century. Then when we look at the ground floor, the walls, the floor, we see that the wall and the house is actually constructed or rather reconstructed from an 11th century building. So, that this building is not really new building. This building was constructed almost 1000 years back, and it was reconstructed. So, it is an old building, but it has been reconstructed from a 1000-year-old tower. It was something like a tower in which people used to live, and it was reconstructed in this current form. So, masonry, when we see how the walls are made, how the floor is made, how the doors are created, these are all 1000-year old. And then when we go down in the cellar, we discover that the walls are actually Roman foundation, which means almost 2000-year old. So, if we, as we go down further in our mind, we keep going down and down into human history. So, what is going on in our mind is something which is 2000-year old, and even below that if we go, we see there is a cave that is actually filled in, and on the floor of that cave we find stone tools and of glacial fauna. So, glacial age, when men used to live in like an, not like an animal, but who lived like a early age man, where they will only kill, and they used to live in a cave and so on and so forth. So, that kind of stone tools are found which were strewn at that, which were used at that time. So, what he is trying to say is that in a mind, in our mind and modern mind, he is talking about a modern mind and every mind, your mind, my mind. So, in this mind has a structure, and this structure is hierarchical, or in the sense that something is above and something is below. And as you scratch the surface, as you go below the surface, in the surface you may see whatever is going on is occupying itself with whatever we are dealing with on a daily basis. But as we go down, we see that the value system, the events, the fears, the hopes of 16th century, 11th century, and even early on when we were cavemen. So, these are the emotions that are occupying our mind, and we do not understand why we are behaving in a certain way. Like I said just now, that if we hear, say, some noise coming from the basement, we are scared to go, because we think and we justify it, because we justify saying that there is some mouse or cat or something, but actually it is fear of going into a cave, going into a dark space where something unknown can happen, some animal may come and kill us. These are the fears that are within us, which has come to us from thousands of years of animal existence. So, what he is trying to say, Carl Jung, is that mind has this structure, and to understand human behavior, human thought, human hopes and fears, we must understand this structure well, so that we are able to explain why we feel what we feel, why we behave how we behave. And this analogy with a building, that mental structure is analogous to the structure of a building, is also illuminating. So, that especially particularly for designers and architects, because if they keep this structure in mind, they will be able to create something new, something unique design, and that which is singular. If you remember one of the discussions that we had in the past on how to create singular objects of architecture. So, only if they are able to relate the structure of a house and structure of the mind, they will be able to create singular objects, they will be able to create something unique which has the power to seduce the onlooker. So, this is what I wanted to say. Now, there is another theory, or there are several theories, but particularly from psychology and psychoanalysis, which says that this is one structure that Carl Jung has given. There is another structure which is given by the teacher of Carl Jung, which is Sigmund Freud, and he says that mind is like an iceberg. And what is the quality of an iceberg? That only 1/3 of it is visible and 2/3 of it is invisible. You can see I have given a picture of an iceberg, and you see that what is visible is unconscious and what is invisible is preconscious or subconscious and unconscious. So, if we try and bring the two analogy together, the upper floor, which is the 19th century building style, is at the level of conscious, and everything else is below. So, say cavemen or 11th century, whatever is happening in the mind, that is at the level of unconscious, and recent past is at the level of preconscious or subconscious. So, if you want to understand yourself, your own mind, and the mind which creates images for architecture, for design, for creativity, for poetry, these images are actually drawn from the unconscious and preconscious and not really from conscious. So, that is why we are often surprised that how can a child create such a beautiful painting, or how can even I say something so beautiful when circumstances are not really supporting the fact that I can be so poetic. So, that all that is coming from the level of the unconscious. Perhaps something has gone into my unconscious which is throwing up in an unexpected way in unexpected images. So, that is the reason why it is important to understand what is in the unconscious, what is in the subconscious, and the way to understand is by analyzing and looking at the dreams and the daydreams that we have on a daily basis. And that is where the importance of this study by Gaston Bachelard lies, because what he does is he excavates the poetic imagination. Where are these images coming from? And he says that these images are coming from the first universe that we have inhabited, and that first universe is the house where we have lived in. Let us move forward. So, another structure of the mind given by Sigmund Freud, who was the teacher of Carl Jung, and this says that the mind has three parts: id, ego and superego. Every mind has id, ego and superego. Now, what is this id, ego and superego? Ego works at the level of conscious and id and superego below that. What is id? Id is that which is primal. Id is that which are hopes and fears, which are that which is base, that which is animal like in our mind. Now, what is animal like? How do animals live? What is the life of an animal? Life of the animal is governed by broadly two objectives. One is that whenever it is hungry, it wants to eat, and whenever it feels like procreating, it will procreate, or it will have mate. It requires a mate so that it can procreate. So, largely its life is governed by these two forces, hunger and need to mate. Now, this is a very vital energy that every animal has, and it drives the life. Now, at the base, all human beings are also animals. We are all animals at the substrate level, at the basic level, and therefore, these two instincts are present in us also. The two fundamental instincts which is to save ourselves from starvation, we should not die of hunger, and therefore, we have this tendency to hoard, to save and so on, so that we are not in a troublesome situation. And second is this desire to mate with the male or the female. So, both these drives are very strong drives in all animals, and it is equally strong in human beings. The desire to prevent starvation and desire to mate with the species with their opposite sex. Now, this is a very potent energy in all animals, including human beings, and what has happened is that human beings, as the culture grew, as human beings became more educated, civilized and so on, what it did was it controlled this energy. The role of the culture, the job of the culture was to control this energy and drive this energy into other areas of work. And by controlling and diverting this energy, what it did was it told human beings that you must, if you want to eat right now, do not eat right now, eat after 2 hours, eat in the afternoon, eat in the evening, eat at night. Nothing will happen if you do not eat for 3-4 hours. So, this way the culture made a habit out of people that in the morning you have breakfast, afternoon, lunch, evening, dinner and so on. So, it created habit, and because it created habit, it freed the human beings from all the time looking for food. And when you are not all the time looking for food, you are using your energies to do something more productive, something else. Similarly, the ideas related to mating. If all the time you are looking for partners to mate, then there is no time for anything else. So, culture was created in such a way that you cannot mate all the time, and it also created things, ideas or institutions like marriage, institutions like monogamy, to control the urge to have sex or control to mate with person of opposite sex. So, all these institutions were created to control the energy of the individual. So that is superego. So, id is that which is primal, which is related to hunger and mating and security and survival, whereas superego is that which is forbidding, which says no, this is not right, do not do this is not good, this is not right, and so on and so forth. So, id and superego. Id says I want this, superego says you cannot want, you do not want this, you cannot have this right now, and so on. So, these two stand against each other, id and superego. Superego is represented by culture and id is represented by fundamental primal drives of starvation or trying to prevent hunger or drive of having sex and things like that. These are standing opposite to each other, and then there is ego, which is at the conscious level, which is trying to balance the two. It is saying okay, do not do it right now, you can do later, or it can overrule superego and it says that okay, for some time let him have food, I want 2 pizza. So, ego will say okay, you have 1 pizza today, 1 pizza you can have next week, and things like that. So, ego tries to balance the fight between id and superego. So, what I am trying to say is that in this battle between id and superego, enormous heat is generated, and from that heat what emerges are the creative images, images that we think, images of fountain, images of animals, images, all the kinds of images that you can I mean if you look at your dreams carefully, you will see that these images are emerging from this battle between id and superego. So, this was given by Sigmund Freud, and he said that what is above the surface is conscious mind and what is below the surface is unconscious mind. This is similar to this conscious, preconscious, unconscious, and it is also similar to what Carl Jung said about the upper floor and the ground floor and the caves and so on and so forth. So, these are all similar. What we have to understand is that these poetic imagination. So, when we look at our life, our life, early life, when we were children, what comes to us is like a sequence of events which is like a story. It is almost as if we are living a film, living a cinema, and that is very exciting to us because it appears to us, it comes to us as a poem, it comes to us as a story, it comes to us as if it's a cinema where I am the chief character or main character, I am the hero or I am the heroine. So, all of us, when we think of the past, we become like a poet, and why we become like a poet? Because the images that surround our memory are very poetic. So, what we have to do is we have to excavate that poetic imagination, why it is being formed, and to understand that we have to look at the structure of the mind. Let us move forward. So, corner, house, and see, we are all trying to see what are our experiences in a house. One of the experience of our houses is to be in a corner. I have given a picture of Dennis the Menace. Often he will be punished by his mother and he will be made to stand in a corner. You can read the cartoon, but corner as a punishment. Now we can look at it as a punishment that, oh, I am being punished and therefore I am standing in a corner. But I have also said that house is our corner in the world. So, do we take it as a punishment or do we take it as a blessing? If our experience is pleasant, we can take it as a blessing. So, what is important is that what are the emotions that we are feeling while we are in this corner, either corner inside a house or house itself as a corner. Corner, as I said, has two sides open. So, you can escape and you can remain. So, the choice is yours. Okay. Next, corner is also solitude. So, when you are in your corner, you are with yourself, okay, and you are away from the rest. So, you can also interpret your experience of corner as solitude, not just as punishment or not just as blessing. Solitude can also be blessing, solitude can also be punishment. So, what do you do in a corner? Do you discover yourself in a corner? Do you lose yourself in a corner? What do you do in a corner? It is these thoughts that are important, that will that kind of indicates as to what kind of person we are becoming. What he said is that spatial reality determines who I am, and he gave this statement also, I am the place where I am. So, it is the place which determines who I am, and he gives the French line also, je suis l'espace où je suis. Who I am is I am the place that I am. So, place determines my identity. There are few other things that we must keep in mind while we are discussing our house. So, first thing is drawers, ready-made garments, chests. Now, all of us have wardrobes. We have chests and drawers, and we keep all kinds of things in our drawers, sometimes keys, pen and all kinds. Now, it may have happened to you that you are going through your drawer and suddenly you find something which is long lost. It could be a key, it could be maybe some toy which you have lost long back, or a dress which you had thought you have lost, or you had never really worn and it has not come to your sight, and suddenly you discover that, oh, this dress is also there which I can wear. So, these drawers or chests, they always have a certain sense of mystery, that what is there inside is something that can be discovered, it is something mysterious, something that is not known, and so on. I mean, just for example, if an outsider, if a friend comes or if some relative comes, and if he or she starts opening your drawer and start looking into what is there inside, will you feel comfortable? You will not feel comfortable at all. So, therefore, we must look into our experience of what really is there inside the drawer, that it makes it uncomfortable for us when someone comes and starts searching what is there inside the drawer. So, nowadays we live in flats, and flats go up and up and up, there is no end, and they have all become like vertical superimposed boxes, one box over the other, and then it becomes very difficult to have these mysteries inside the house, and therefore, it has become very difficult to become poetic in these houses. We will look at these details of houses in our next lecture. In the next lecture, we will go further and decide what is understand what is the cosmicity of the house, what is heroism related to house, and how heroism is developed or it is suppressed in these houses where there is no verticality, where they are only like vertical superimposed boxes. So, this is where I stop. In the next lecture, lecture number 11, we will continue this and complete this and then move to the content of lecture number 11. Thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed.